Okay, Year 12, welcome to your very first tutorial. Today we are going to go through and I'm going to map out exactly what you're going to be studying in the HSC course for Studies of Religion. Guys, it's HSC now. It's time to get serious. You'll notice as we go through all of this that most of the work that we've done in Year 11 will act as a foundation to aid and support everything that we study in Year 12. It's really important that not only you remember and you're able to recall all of the things that we learn in Year 11, but you're able to also make connections between previous knowledge, or Year 11, and the new information that you'll be presented with in Year 12. The HSC is all about making relationships between information clear. Okay, so this is going to be something that we're going to look at a lot, connecting information and connecting ideas. First off, I've just drawn up this little table for you. Now, it's up to you what you'd like to do. I think it'd be a pretty good idea to be copying most of this down in your book, just so you have it here as a resource. The HSC course for Studies of Religion is split into 3 different topics. So just like in Year 11, we studied religion and beliefs, the nature of religion and beliefs. Then we looked at Christianity, and then we looked at Islam. The HSC course follows the same structure. However, we start with a topic called Religion and Belief Systems in Australia post-1945. Then we move on and have a look at Christianity. Then we move on and have a look at Islam. Now, our first topic, Religion and Belief Systems, will take us through to nearly the end of this term. Okay, so it starts from next week when I'm back, and it'll continue most of the way through to the end of week 8, start of week 9, depending on how our timeline goes. Then our Christian depth study, a Christianity depth study. So like we studied Christianity pretty deeply this year, we'll do the same again end of this year, start of next year. That goes for about 11 weeks. So we started in week 11 at the end of this year is a bit of a write-off. So about 10 or 11 weeks we have that. Then straight off, your half yearly. Now your half yearly at the moment on the calendar is scheduled in for around week 8 and 9 of term 1. So once you come back from that after completing your half yearly, we will then start Islam. At the end of term 2, mainly into term 3, we'll be doing some practice for your trials. Now you can see that there's a few weeks gap. There's about 2 or 3 weeks gap there. Now depending on how much time, this timeline could get pushed down. If we're able to keep on track, you'll get some good time for practice, a good 2 weeks. If not, it'll mean that we will have to actually feed into some of that time. Then in weeks 3 and 4 of term 3 next year, you will complete your trial HSC. Your trial is very important. When you come back in about week 5, as you saw with the 12s this year, most of the rest of term 3 will be spent doing revision, give or take how much time we have to finish the course, okay? So that's what it looks like. 3 different topics. But remembering, like we had this year, we don't actually see each other too often. And the amount of times we miss classes due to events can push that timeline back. I will try and keep us on track. You guys have this here as well, so you can keep track as to where we are. Now, you need to have at this point, if your teacher, the relief teacher hasn't already asked you, you need to have a printed out copy of the syllabus. The syllabus is the most important document you can own for the HSC. It is your, sorry to be ironic, but Bible. It is your absolute Bible for the HSC because it tells you everything you need to know. In the next few slides, we're going to be going over the syllabus and you'll need to have highlighters and pens to annotate. Before we do that, I'm going to give you a little bit of a breakdown of your assessment. It's not official yet because dates and things can change, but this is how it's pretty much going to look. You'll have 4 assessment tasks. Task 1, Task 2, Task 3 and Task 4. Now you'll notice 2 of your tasks are the official exams. So you'll have a half yearly and you'll have a trial. Okay, the other 2 assessment tasks, your first one's coming up towards the end of this term, okay, towards the end of this term, and it's going to be about religion in Australia post-1945, okay. Task 3, okay, will be happening next year, and it's going to be on Islam. Now, all of these tasks, an important thing to understand is because studies of religion is only one unit, it's all of your assessment tasks are out of 50. Okay, because it's not 100 because it's only one unit. This first assessment task, this first one that's coming up later this term, is 10 out of 50. Okay, your half yearly will again be roughly about, now these aren't locked in, but this is roughly it, about 10 out of 50. This one here will be 10 out of 50, which leaves 20 out of 50 on your trials. Now that will make up your entire assessment mark. A reminder as how important it is, how very, very, very important it is to get a good ranking and to get a good mark in your assessment marks. Because, yeah, at the end of the day, the HSC is important, but it's only 50%. The rest is coming from your assessment marks, guys, and they're really, really, really important. So, they're your assessments. That's a mini breakdown. What do we actually learn about in each topic? Well, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to get your syllabus, okay? And I would like you to turn to what page is it in your syllabus? It's the content section, HSC content section, and it's page 32. Okay, this is the page you're presented with. Now, this is a breakdown of what I've just showed you. Every single school who is doing studies of religion and running it, studies of religion 1 unit, not 2. They will complete the religion and belief systems post 1945. Okay, and we're about to go through what exactly they're doing. Now, because other schools can choose other religious traditions like Hinduism or Buddhism, they have listed here study 1 and study 2. So when we scroll down in the next few pages, you'll notice there's things like Buddhism and Hinduism and Judaism listed in the syllabus. We do not study them. We only study Christianity and Islam. So 16 hours spent doing religion and belief systems, 22 hours spent doing Christianity, and then 22 hours spent doing Islam. Okay, so it gives us a total of 60 indicative hours. So if we scroll down, you'll notice on your document the first thing will be religion and belief systems post 1945. Okay, this is our first topic. Okay, within this, we both learn about religion, the religious landscape in Australia, but first we start with contemporary Aboriginal spiritualities. You understood concepts of the dreaming. You understood the importance to land. You understand you have some understanding, about the way in which Aboriginal spiritualities are formed. We did this in year 11. In year 12, what we do is we build. And what a year 12 does a lot of the time is it assumes knowledge. So it presumes that you have an understanding of what the dreaming is. It presumes you have an understanding of the importance of land for Aboriginal people. And it's discussed how that spirituality is determined by the land. We learn about what kingship is. We touched on it briefly last year. We learn about what ceremonial life is, okay? So we understand that the rituals are performed on the land. Yeah, we got that in year 11. Now, we need to discuss what are those rituals and what are they specifically. Further from that, we actually have a look at, okay, year 11 we learned that the land was important. Year 12, we're kind of trying to build on that. We have a look at the stolen generations and disposition within the Australian Aboriginal community. So you have to have this understanding of year 11. We're making this connection between, okay, this is the land. This is something that happened in history. You are going to be able to discuss the continuing effect and the importance and why the stolen generations had such a significant impact on Australian spirituality. Australian Aboriginal spirituality, okay? So I think you're already probably starting to see this pattern about how year 11 is so important and it's year 12 simply builds. It's like a building block. You've set the foundation and then you move from that. You'll also be required to outline, so not so much discuss or give detail, but outline the importance then of the land rights movement in relation to native title and Mabo and WIC, and we're going to have a look at what those are. And then the last one, okay, you have an understanding of what the dreaming is. We learnt about it in year 11. This is asking you to analyse the importance of the dreaming for the land rights movement. So we're kind of tying a lot of things and making a lot of connections. We're tying a lot of things together. So we're not just looking at the dreaming in isolation and the land in isolation. We're not just giving the airy-fairy, it's important. We're saying, okay, these are things that happened in history and this is why. Here's the theory that proves it. Here's the connection back from dreaming to land, to Mabo, to stolen generations, to obligations to land and people. Here are how they're all connected and this is why they're important. Okay? So, once again, if I haven't already reinforced it enough, year 11, it's about making connections, using the information that you've learned already and building upon that by putting it into context. Okay? So either putting it into context historically or putting it into context analytically by analysing and drawing connections. The next part, we looked briefly at the idea of different religious traditions within Christianity. We looked at Anglicanism, Protestantism. We looked at the emergence of different religious traditions just very quickly. What you'll be asked to do in the second part of this unit is saying, okay, these are different religions, but what does it look like in our backyard? What does religion look like in Australia? Now, that is a very broad topic. So what they've done, instead of just looking at it in general, the syllabus actually kind of locks it in between 2 points, and that's looking at religious expression, or what religion has been like in Australia from 1945 to the present. You're looking at a lot of census data. Okay, so the census tells us about different adherents to different religions. Okay, so what people are following, what religion. A really interesting thing is you look at actually having to justify. So saying, okay, why is there been such a lift in Hinduism or such a lift in Islam, and you're actually able to justify, okay, or an account, say, okay, this is why things are happening. Here's the census data. This is what it says, and this is why it's happening. So either immigration or people switching between denominations, and the rise of New Age, and the rise and the separation of people from religion, the separation of religion from state. It's quite interesting, but it's a lot of accounting for change. The second part of this is looking at the idea of interfaith and interdenominational kind of cooperation. So you look, okay, this is Australia, these are the religions, now we need to have a look at how the hell they get on. Okay, so in this second part, you have a look at, okay, what is interfaith dialogue? What does ecumenism mean? What does this word ecumenical movements mean? What is ecumenism? What's the impact of ecumenism? Probably the most important thing in here is the idea of interfaith dialogue, and you're asked to evaluate the importance. So we'll have a look at different religions talking, or different faiths. Remember, we use this word faith now, different faiths dialogue amongst each other, and why is this important? The last and probably the most important is discussing the relationship between the Aboriginal community and the rest of the religious traditions present within Australia, and how they can move towards a process of reconciliation. Okay, so yeah, guys, again, this is assuming that you already have an understanding of from year 11, and we're simply building on it. So that's the first topic, religion and belief systems in Australia post-1945. And everyone does that, absolutely everyone. Then we have a look at Christianity, okay? So our first depth study will be Christianity, and that will start at the end of this term and go through for most of term 1. First thing, this is the column you are interested in, Students Learn 2. It has your describers, okay? It tells you what you're asked to do about that person. Are you asked to explain or analyse or describe or demonstrate or account? That's one you're looking at. Within each religious tradition that we study, so within Christianity and Islam, we look at significant person, ethic, and practice. Okay, it's split into 3 things. So it's no longer split into the characteristics of religion. It is split into person, ethic, practice. There's a whole lot of choice within each of these. Okay, whole lots of choices. Sorry, I should have circled this guy over here. That's got confusing for a second. It's the same thing, but whatever. Person, ethic, and practice. Whole lots of choices. We only choose one. Okay, don't have to do them all. We only have to choose one. I need you to get out your highlighter because we're about to start highlighting. Which ones are we doing? Well, for Christianity, the person in which we study is John Paul the 23rd, who's heaps cool. He's actually really interesting, and there's lots of really great information out about him. And he did lots of really cool stuff. Okay, we are going to explain his contribution to the development and expression of Christianity. Now, what does this assume? This assumes you already know what Christianity is. It assumes that you know the sacred text. It assumes that you know the principal beliefs. It assumes that you know whole lots of other information. You will need to use this information when you're describing Pope John Paul the 23rd, okay? When you look at also analysing the impact of this person, you're going to have a look at how did John Paul the 23rd impact the life of Christianity. If you don't understand basic parts of Christianity, you will struggle. You might be able to bluff your way through a little bit, but you will struggle to get a band 5 or a band 6 if you don't have that basic understanding, because it's going to be drawing on, okay, he expressed the ideas of Christianity. Well, I know one of the principal beliefs of Christianity is this, and this is how he expressed it in his life. It's so important that you make these connections, okay? The ethic, I need you to highlight the ethic that we are doing. We are looking at bioethics, okay? That is the ethic that we are looking at. Not environmental and not sexual. We are looking at bioethics, okay? That prefix bio means living, okay? Which most of you will get if you do biology. It means living. So we're looking at ethics to do with life, okay? I know one that we definitely look at is euthanasia. I believe we may also look at abortion. Not 100% on that one. I know we definitely look at euthanasia though. The significant practice in the life of the adherents, okay? This last section. The practice that we study is one that you've already, well, no, maybe. Well, one that you're probably familiar with. Baptism, okay? We not only are asked to describe the practice within Christianity drawn from baptism, but, what's this? I'm sorry. Demonstrate how the chosen practice expresses the beliefs of Christianity. You need to know those beliefs off by heart. Okay, you need to know them off by heart. You need to be able to say, okay, in baptism represents the Trinity and this is how it does it. Baptism represents salvation, this is how it does it. Baptism represents the divinity and humanity of Jesus, this is how he does it, okay? It's so important that you're able to make these connections back and go boom, 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 okay? That you can make connections left, right, and center is no more important than it is right now when looking in Year 12. The last thing that you're asked to do is analyse the significance of this practice for both the individual and the community. So you'll notice now it keeps on asking you, okay, this is great. This is a practice, this is what it does, this is how it links, but how does that impact on the life of the adherent? How does that impact for the community? This is something, as you notice with the person, the significant person, it always asks you, okay, that's good. I'm glad that you have an understanding of that. How does that relate to the life of the adherent? How does that relate to the community? So it's really important that not only you understand, but you're able to put it in context. Okay, Islam. Once we're done with Christianity, we are on to Islam. Again, within Islam, lo and behold, person, ethic, practice. Same as we did for Christianity. Person, ethic, practice. Get your highlighters out again. Okay, so the significant person that we look at within Islam is Sayyid Qutb. Okay, this guy over here. We are asked to explain his contribution to the development of Islam. Okay, so how did he contribute? These are the reasons. Explain, relate, cause and effect. This is what he did. This is how it contributed to Islam. Okay, he's actually really quite interesting, Sayyid. He grew up in Egypt, and there's quite a lot of information around regarding him, so you'll have plenty of resources. You're then asked to say, okay, this is Sayyid Qutb, this is what he did, this is his life. How did he impact on Islam? What was his impact? Okay, this is what he contributed. What did that mean in terms of the expression of Islam? So you're always asked to take it one step further. Not just, this is the guy, this is his contribution, this is the effect that it had, but how did that impact in the long run on Islam? Okay, the ethic that we look at within Islam, or the Islamic tradition, is again bioethics. Okay, so we look at bioethics. Now, what I didn't mention before with Christianity is all of your ethical decision makings. Okay, we learnt this at the very start of year 11. Where are those ethics drawn from? So we know that ethics are guidelines. Okay, and there is like a set of rules for a religion. How do they make up those rules? What are they sourced from? Okay, so most people would say, okay, well, most of the ethics are got from the sacred text. Cool, excellent. So the ethic within Islam of the sanctity of life, where does that come from? Why do we have an ethic that you can't that killing other people is wrong? It all relates back to the principal beliefs. So within ethics, while we might be describing and explaining Islamic ethical teachings, you have to have an understanding of the beliefs of Islam, because the beliefs is where all of ethics are sourced from. So if you want to get those band 5s and those band 6s in ethics, you have to have a very in-depth understanding of the principal beliefs from year 11. Because if you don't, your discussion of ethics will be pretty shallow. Just saying, well, the ethical position for this bioethic in Islam is that. Okay, why? Where does that come from? What's the connection back to Islam and the tradition? It's all about making relationships clear in year 12. I sound like the most annoying person because I keep on saying the same thing. But guys, it really is. You need to be able to have an understanding of principal beliefs in order to have an understanding of ethics. Okay, in order to be able to give a well-rounded argument on ethics, you have to have a very in-depth study, or a very in-depth knowledge, of the principal beliefs. So bioethics is the one we study in terms of the ethical choices there. Last one is the significant practice, as it is already one of the pillars, as you already have some kind of basic knowledge of it. The Hajj is the significant practice that we study. However, in year 11, we kind of generally talked about the Hajj and what actually happens. It's a pilgrimage. Those who really decided to go kind of quite well for their second assessment task would have done a lot. That big essay that asked you relate the pillars to the beliefs would have done a lot more research on what the Hajj actually is. But for those who didn't, in year 12, we look at each stage of the Hajj, okay? We describe the practice, and we again, boom, 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 demonstrate how this practice expresses the principal beliefs. So you cannot do year 12 in isolation without making connections back to year 11. So not only are we going to say this is the Hajj and these are the stages, but this is how it physically expresses the beliefs of Islam. And your year 11 task from last year, you are actually already kind of doing that, which is really exciting. So for this particular dot point, some of you will already have a head start. And the last thing that it wants you to do, and probably one of the most important, is to analyse the significance of the Hajj for both the individual and the community. So stop just looking at it as this is the Hajj, this is how it's linked to the beliefs, but taking a lens and saying, okay, this is the Islamic community, this is their faith community, okay, this is the individual who is the Islamic person, this is what the Hajj means for them, okay, this is what the Hajj means for them, and this is why it's important. So you can never really do too much in studies of religion in isolation without making those connections back to your year 11 knowledge. What I'd like you to do, spend the time today, guys, doing for the rest of the lesson, is I'd like you to look at this syllabus and I'd like you to start making some of those connections. So start back at religion and belief systems post 1945, and I'd like you to go through and make little notes like in the sides of the margin or wherever, or if you just want to do it in your book on another page, write down the connections that year 11 has to this syllabus. So if you go back to the religion belief systems post 1945, if you want to look at Aboriginal, that first dot point that's asked you to have a look at discussing how Aboriginal spirituality is determined by the dreaming in terms of kingship, ceremonial life, and obligations to the land. You could do an annotation from the dreaming. Understands concepts of the dreaming from year 11. Understands what the dreaming is. When you're looking at the second dot point, you could make an annotation that what do I need to know from year 11 to do this? Well, I needed to have an understanding of the importance of land for Aboriginal people, why the land is important, how the land fits in with their spirituality, okay? So I want you to do that for all. Okay, make connections back to year 11 information for all of religion and belief systems, for all of Christianity, and for all of Islam. So I've done a lot of it through this video tutorial. I want you to now go back and do it for the rest of the lesson. Okay, this is really, really important, guys. You need to keep on top of it. I know a lot of you were towards the end of last year with your the end of last term, with your prelims. I had people in there stressing with me in study sessions going, oh, I'm not going to get all of this, miss. I'm not going to get all of this. I saw a lot of your faces as you sat down for the exam, freaking out. I think you finally realised religion isn't like it was in 7 to 10. It's going to require effort. Not too much, though. If you put in half of the effort that you put in towards English or maths into religion, you will find by the time you come to exam periods, you will be fine. If you started writing your notes from day one like you might do for physics or chem or software design or biology or drama or whatever it is, if you put in half the effort that you put into those subjects, you put that into religion, you will be going great guns. Okay, guys? So, get out the syllabus, start making those links, what you already know from year 11, how it's going to help you for every single dot point in year 12. Okay? Thanks, guys.